Welcome to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand and remain standing.
We ask that you be with our brothers and sisters that are out working, Lord. We ask for
Dallas-Fort Worth Airport Department of Public Safety Honor Guard, Sergeant Eric Beam, Sergeant Benoni Cole, Officer Marcus Patterson, and Sergeant John Thompson. Let's give them a round of applause. They just did a fantastic job. Noticed in the just before, we have gone from across the state of Texas. So we are very excited to be here in the North Texas incredible facility, Chief. And I want to personally thank you and your team for welcoming us with open arms, yesterday and today. Thank you so very much, and having us here this morning. Technical adjustments here. Everyone being here this morning, and we are going to ask you, sir, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself. This is wireless. We appreciate you dropping everything. I'm sure you had this scheduled, but you changed your schedule so that you could.
Well, I'll keep it brief. I first of all like to thank Governor Abbott for giving me this appointment, making sure that I'm just one person, part of a board, makes these important decisions. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure that to be part of is to help out and support our public servants, and that's why I'm here. I'm dedicated to all our public servants in the state of Texas. I just want to make sure that their impact that I have is one of positive one, and one of when anybody needs to reach out to me can do so. So that's why I have my information out there. And I also want to thank all the board members for welcoming me and all the staff. And I'm just here to serve, and I appreciate again the appointment.
Much, and I know given your depth of your experience and your background, here.
Here. Here.
Present.
We'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is the approval of the minutes of the Yes, so there will be some additional conversations.
Very much. I appreciate it. Good morning, Commissioners. How are y'all this morning? Thank you again for last night. It was very enjoyable time and meant a great deal to me. I don't have a whole lot for you today because I like to defer to my directors and let them tell you most of what's going on because they're the ones in the middle of it. But I do have some things I want to let you hear or know about this morning. We have so many new people. It's kind of astounding in all the time that I've been at TCOLE, and we ask for people and we struggle for people and trying to get enough staff to get the job done. And at the end of the last session, as you know, they gave us several new positions, and we've been very busy filling those and still have some that we need to fill. But we do have some new team members, and I started to wait till June to do this, where you could actually see them because it'll be in Austin. But I thought I would go ahead and make these introductions now and make sure they get a chance to meet you when you come to Austin. Let's start with the Enforcement Division. TJ Vineyard joined our enforcement team as a sergeant investigator. TJ was born and raised here in Dallas, but while attending University of Texas, he decided that he liked Austin and he was going to stay there. He joined in 1995 the Austin Police Academy, where he served for 23 years. He retired from APD as a sergeant in the robbery unit. He then joined the Pflugerville Police Department and worked as a violent crimes detective. Additionally, he's worked in the private security field as a private investigator. He's worked on all types of task forces with nearly every federal agency and many county and municipal agencies and brings a wealth of experience to enforcement staff. We're glad that we have him. He enjoys camping, hiking, fishing, and practically all outdoor activities that he can do with his wife and 3 kids. And I worry about him a little bit because he has a passion for running, and I worry about anybody that has a passion for running. But he embraces the challenge of ultramarathon trail races, which almost made me fail him for psychological reasons, but I decided to go ahead and give him a chance. Another enforcement, addition to the enforcement team, Marina Petkazek joined the enforcement division team as a sergeant investigator in January. She has 8 years combined investigative and law enforcement experience, having served 5 years as a state trooper with the DPS, 2 years as investigator with the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, and 1 year with the Lower Colorado River Authority as a LCRA ranger. That breadth of experience will serve her well working for us. She's originally from Denver, Colorado, and graduated from the Metropolitan State University of Denver with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. She and her husband have 2 beautiful children, and she loves hockey. And so we talk hockey quite a bit because I like hockey. On to the IT division, new people we have there. Sarah Childress has worked for the state for over 2 years now. Prior to working with us, she worked at the Department of State Health Services and Vital Statistics as a field service representative. She is excited to get to work in the criminal justice arena for TCOLE because she graduated from Texas State with a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. After her graduation from Texas State, she worked as an English as a second language teacher in Japan, which is very interesting. While living in Japan, her Japanese language skills progressed to where she became quite conversational. She enjoys reading and working out at a Krav Maga, I hope I said that right, Krav Maga gym. To be quite honest, I didn't know what that was. So I looked it up. Apparently, it's fighting style developed by Israeli military forces. So I'm going to keep her up in front of us in case we have any problems. We'll let her take care of it. Melissa Janske has worked for the state of Texas for 4 years now. She joined TCOLE from the Jail Commission. We stole her from the Jail Commission, where she handled all their monthly reporting for county jails. I must admit that the only thing that rivals stealing good people from DPS is stealing them from the Jail Commission. We enjoy that just as well. Melissa worked in the medical field for 15 years as a medical clinical assistant. After graduating with a certification as a medical assistant from Southern Careers Institute, she likes horseback riding, hunting, and fishing, lives in Elgin with her husband and 2 dogs, and she lives on a farm, she says, with cows, horses, ducks, chickens, and hopefully soon a donkey. Sounds like a fun person to me, so we're glad to have her. Bless her heart, Gretchen's been looking for help for a long time and trying to find somebody good, and she really managed to hit the jackpot. Sarah Flott is a proud native Texan that Gretchen has found and has hired on with us. She split her time growing up between the city of Austin and a small horse farm in Copeland, where she learned to ride horses, garden fish, and hunt dove and quail. Before she joined the government relations team as a legislative coordinator, she worked for an Austin lobby firm as a legislative consultant during the 87th Texas legislative session, representing a variety of clients in several policy areas, including healthcare, education, business, and the protection of Texas wildlife. Her passion for working with the legislature first developed with her experience working in the Texas House of Representatives, where she served 2 different House speakers in the 85th and 86th legislative sessions. While working for the Texas House, she received her bachelor's degree from Texas State University, studying business and political science. She has extensive experience working at the Capitol, and it shows. She hit the ground running with us and is doing a lot of amazing things. So we were very, very fortunate with that hire as well. Last to go into credentialing. We have some new credentialing people. Sarah Beth Barksdale joined our credentialing team a few weeks ago. She's the wife of Bailey Barksdale, who's sitting back in the back of the room right now, one of our IT staff who joined in October of 21. They moved to Austin to become part of the TCOLE family and to look forward to their future as part of this wonderful organization. She's a 7th-generation Texan. Sarah Beth was born and raised here in Dallas, has a BA in equine management from Asbury University in Wilmore, Kentucky. That's a very interesting background. After graduating, she spent several years working as an equine videographer and making marketing assistant in the thoroughbred racing and sales industry. After marrying Bailey in 2017, they moved to Mississippi, where she worked in the preschool and childcare world, eventually becoming a preschool center director. That's a vastly different field to work in from where she is now, but what it did, it really helped her with her communication, organizational skills, and attention to detail, and she's fit in very well and is working very well with us. She is also an avid animal lover. They have horses, dogs, cats, and 2 different aquariums, and she also lives in Elgin. Stephanie Ging, the last one that I will introduce to you, comes from the small community of Copeland. She and her husband got married about 8 months ago and bought their first home. They have dogs, cats, and horses. She's a big animal lover and comes from the veterinary industry, where she was a vet tech for 6 years. She has 2 family members in state working for the state, and she felt like that TCOLE would be a good place to start a career, and feels like she'll have the ability to have growth in the credentialing department, and she looks forward to the challenges of working with TCOLE. So that's our new people that we have so far. I'm glad to introduce them to you. I'm always very proud of my staff, and you see we have quite a breadth of experience there in different ways that I think are going to help us quite a bit. I told you once before about our new office space. I believe I talked a little bit. It is now open. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about our new office space that we have at the office. We managed to get some more offices and now a nice large meeting room. We were very fortunate to be able to get the space, and I can't wait for you to come see it. We had our maiden meeting in it Monday, and to kind of transition into that, where we had Sunset. Our opening meeting was Sunset, and they met in the room, and they were very, very impressed with the room and said we had done a good job with it. So can't wait for you to come see it in June when you get to Austin. I believe that is all I have. Unless you have any questions for me, I think I'll let my directors handle the other business for you. But if you have any questions, I would be happy to entertain them.
Good morning. Glad to see everybody. I'll get started with the enforcement numbers. We are wrapping up the non-compliance process. We opened just under 2,000 cases, 1,915 non-compliance cases. It sounds like a lot, but we are making progress. That is much lower than any unit cycle ending in the past, so we're definitely making progress. Either the enforcement or the notifications we're sending out are working, but whichever way it is, we want to continue to bring that number down. As always, I have a bunch of projects that are in various states of deployment, and we'll slightly go through those real quick on the important ones. But other than that, we have a lot of information that was provided to you in your notebook, and after I go through the projects, we can entertain any questions. We have deployed and released the TSS, the TCOLE Secure Share. We've got a lot of feedback, some good, some bad. We're working through some of the kinks there. We have about a 65% success rate, and that success rate doesn't necessarily mean there were 25 or 40 others that didn't work, because they have 10 days to upload it. Whenever we run that number, we got to see where they're at in that phase, so we can't figure out if they were successful or not while they have that period of deployment. All the interactions that we've had good feedback, a lot of decisions. The main call that we're getting, which we're glad, if we find something in that background, do we have to continue to go, that we do not want to hire somebody for, do we have to continue to go down and look through all the other agencies? And it's an employment decision. If you see something in the first background that says, nope, we're not going to take this individual, that is totally up to you to stop at that point. The background confirmation form, which is a part of this, is only required if you get to the appointment position, that you are going to appoint this individual after you've done the background. We've received one comment about the size limitations. We are working through that because of the system, but being able to break it down into the parts that it has been. Melissa and Sarah that were introduced this morning are the two individuals that manage that system, along with Jessica Capraro. They're working with the IT department and getting folks through those issues. The other one that we are finally getting close to, and as I walked in, received several comments on this one, the TCLED's acquisition. We have turned over the contract to the owner of Productivity Center. They are in the review process with their attorneys, and attorneys will take their time. We know that. So they're looking through it, and I've got a brief update before we came down here. They have some updates and changes that they may want to make to the contract. Obviously, we will accept those, take a look at them if we can even make those changes, and then we are prepared to make the purchase. That still does not give us the date that everybody's asking for. When can I stop paying for it? I cannot give that out. I do not know, but we are close. If you do get that bill, it is still a privately owned, managed company. That's what I can give you today. The conference, we are working on that. We have put the dates out. The conference hotel actually booked within 2 hours. So we were worried if we were going to have any attendance after not having the conference for a few years. We know we're going to at least have 580 people. So we've got half the attendance there. We have not received any reports from the overflow hotels yet, but we've got some wording that those are pretty booked as well. Yes, ma'am. That is October. I will find that here shortly, because I have all this good information here, but not the dates. I'll get back to that. And so the next question, as the dates come, the registration, we are working with Element, the app company that is building the registration. We are looking to have that out in March, so be looking for that. We're going to put that out there, and then you can register. We already have vendors getting tables. Right now, we have 40 vendors that have already booked their tables and rooms, so I think it is going to be a big conference. The conference is the week of October the 24th through the 27th. That is the week that the fun will happen in Corpus. I know there's a lot in here that are looking forward to the networking and the fellowship. And the training.
It is a training conference, yes, and the training.
So with that, one of the bigger projects that we are doing in collaboration with DIR is cybersecurity. We know that is a big thing that is coming across right now, and we are working to move our entire network behind the DIR wall and into their server cloud, which
Try to not use acronyms today for the purpose of everyone understanding all the acronyms.
the cybersecurity with the Department of Information Resources, which is the state entity that manages all the IT infrastructure and services that we utilize. Right now, they monitor all our traffic through our network. Once we move everything over to them, we will have an even better layer of protection from any intrusions, which we know are all bad. With that, I believe I am done. We do have an IT update that your certificates for TCOLE only courses, if you take a MyTCOLE course, you can get your certificate in your MyTCOLE account now, along with your licenses, jailer, peace officer, or telecommunicator.
Mike, thank you. I do have a couple of questions, so bear with me, as I always do. So the first thing I want to say is thanks to staff for getting the Secure Share up and running like it is. I think what most people outside of TCOLE, and I didn't have a full understanding on it until I visited with you guys about it, is the breadth and scope of how fast we got that up and running to be able to meet the deadline. And so thank you to staff for being able to pull that off. The bad part about that is the reason why there's a size limitation is because that sits on a server, I guess, in-house, right?
Yes.
Which limits the amount of traffic that we can have coming across the network. So if people are wondering, hey, what's going on here? Why is it limited? There's a reason for that, but you guys are working to get that fixed.
Yes, we're looking to move to the Amazon Gov Cloud with the Department of Information Resources. We'll have that up within the next few months.
Okay. I noticed in our packet when I looked through the reports that we have, and great job by everybody on the director's brief that has the stats on there that tell us where things are at. Very good information, and I really appreciate it. On the racial profiling numbers that are on there, that's going to be like on page 32 of our packet, but the first page of your report.
Yes.
Those were 100% done. I just want to clarify, everything was good with those numbers that were received.
Yes, I actually skipped that on my notes. We did with Captain Canella and the field agents. We were actually able to get 100% reporting through the racial profiling, and it did get down to cold calling agencies, and we contacted everybody, and they all met the deadline. Some of them were pretty close, but they all met the deadline.
The amount of work that went into that is astounding as far as the number of phone calls that staff made, that field agents did, and especially Captain Canella was on the phone constantly to try to help that be 100%. So we're very proud of that.
So great work by everybody doing that, and to our agencies out there for ensuring, those are important reports that we're statutorily required to submit that get sent to the governing bodies. And so thank you for everyone for that and the work on that. I think what I would also like to see on the pass rate report and at-risk status, that tells us a good snapshot of where these particular academies are having somewhat issues, but I think, is there a way we can put the number of exams? Because I'm assuming on that score, that's the average score on that 2021 number. Is there a way to put, I guess what I'm looking for is, if you're only given 5 exams and you're getting in a bind on 5 exams versus given 100 exams, right? That's a little bit different to show you might be in an issue depending on your population that you're serving.
We can add that to the report. These numbers and these percentages are pulled from the pass rate report, which is on our website. For the report purposes, I'll bring that over into here.
Okay, well, if it's there, then I can go get it. No problem. Don't worry about that. On the enforcement, on the non-compliance cases, is there a way to break out what final action is at some point? Like, you know, do some people end up, what's the percentage that end up in just the first written reprimand versus steps
We'll
along with
definitely
it?
have that in the upcoming meetings.
And then I had a, what is a jurisdictional investigation? What is the definition for that?
Something that falls under 1701 or Chapter 37 of the Administrative Code.
I like the numbers. I've never, you know, this is the first time we've had some of these numbers on when that is, and that just really, for us, shows the breadth and scope of work that the staff are doing with that on their assignments. So I really appreciate it very much. Madam Chair, I don't have any other questions.
Mike, on the certifications now that we can print off, or the cards on the website, two things. I've had some questions asked. Can they print their temporary license? If they're a jailer or telecommunicator, is that something they can do online?
The temporary would be available, but whenever the temp expires, it will go away.
No, I know that's an income resource for y'all.
At this time, we would not want to entertain that as we do collect the
Okay, no,
revenue.
I'm good with that. I get a lot of questions about that, so.
And understand that that's not just because we like the money, but that's part of a funding swap situation the legislature set up, so.
I totally understand the funding issue,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Thank you, that's all I had.
If I might, Madam Chair, before we finish with Mike, his team, when we decided to go out on the road, one thing we were worried about was finding a location because of how much we need as far as tech and the microphones and all of the sound equipment. And rather than limit ourselves to be able to do that and go someplace that has that, which we very hard to find, I told, let's just buy it. Let's buy the equipment. And so this is the trial run of a lot of very nice equipment and a lot of work that went in from Mike's team to make this work. And I wanted to acknowledge that. The guys, there's more than just them, but the guys sitting back in the back, Dennis Graffius has done so much work on this. But the microphones that we're using, the speakers, and with the one thing that didn't come in, because it's hard to get stuff, is the soundboards. We had to rent that, but we'll have our own, hopefully, for future meetings. But it gives us a flexibility to have these meetings in many different places. But they worked really hard to make that happen, and I wanted to recognize them and his team for the fact that this is working at all is pretty amazing, because we have had to throw this whole thing together and make it work, and they've done a good job. So thank you for letting me talk about them real quick.
Absolutely. Right.
Acronyms, but in your new graphs and everything, I don't know all of them. So I think I'm going to need a legend for a few of these things for next.
We'll have a
Like-
key and a ledger in the back index.
I've been around long enough to know most of them, but I know to get the information kind of in a, so that it looks good as well, you kind of have to abbreviate some things.
We'll absolutely address that.
Well, thank you. Move on to Director Cullen Grissom for the Credentialing and Field Services Director's report, sir.
Good morning, Chief, Commissioners. Report first on Education Services update. Kim Boyd was transferred from Mike's IT team. She's shown an interest in the online development, so Kim Boyd will be joining has joined Education Services as primarily an instructional designer for online TCOLE development. We still have one opening for an instructional designer, and so we're actively recruiting that. In fact, we've got some interviews coming up next week. Current projects out of Education Services. Wanted to put the regulated community on notice that the intellectual and developmental disability training for jailers, the product or an outcome from House Bill 2831. It is not a mandatory course for jailers, but we certainly recommend it. That course is live on TCOLE and available now. That course was built in partnership with the Jail Standards, Commission on Jail Standards. That bill also put a TCOLE representative on the TCJS Intellectual and Developmental Disability Advisory Committee. So right now we are assigned on that committee, so we'll be interacting with that. And that advisory committee's job is to inform both training in this course and ultimately training for jail and correctional staff in dealing with people with intellectual disability. The requirements to increase the basic peace officer course from 696 to 720 hour minimum has been published. That came out of House Bill 3712. We added hours. We listened to the training coordinator, academy coordinators. Many of them said that some of the hours in the BPOC, the hours were too short to deliver the current content. So we didn't add new content in some cases. We added hours so that the content that existed could be covered better. We added hours to Code of Criminal Procedure, missing and exploited children. We added 8 hours and combined working with some materials from the Governor's Sexual Assault Task Force. We expanded the family violence module to broaden it into sexual assault and family violence. Added some trauma-informed victim materials to that. So there was an 8-hour expansion in that section. The bill required us to add the training banning chokeholds, duty to intervene, duty to report excessive force, duty to render aid, duty to summon aid. All of those were in that bill. All of that's been added to the curriculum. We added 4 hours to the health and safety code with the materials on cannabis and some of the expansion and complexity in the new statutes there. Academies are free to implement the 720, and some already have. Some of them are currently using the new materials. But any class that starts after July 1 must be on the 720-hour curriculum. That's its go-live date. It's published. People are using it. We're getting feedback. We'll have some review and revision and some updates and that's a constant. It's a living organism. So, in fact, we were having discussions this morning. So we will be revising and fixing typos and everything else in it. So.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the BPOC is the basic police officer course.
Yes, the basic peace officer course required for peace officer licensure. One of the things we've been working on diligently for what seems like a very long time is the mental health officer course. I know that's near and dear to several commissioners and a large part of our constituency. We impaneled a focus group committee of subject matter experts, a pretty broad committee. During the review, the committee came to the conclusion that the traditional mental health officer course had been 40 hours, but with the advent and the requirement of 40 hours of crisis intervention training and 8 hours of de-escalation being the new normal, the new baseline that peace officers come with, that the committee felt like the mental health officer course should be reduced to a 24-hour event, but ensuring that those two courses are prerequisites to attending the mental health officer course. So, for instance, if a justice of the peace who can get the certificate, it's for jailers, peace officers, and justices of the peace are the ones who are eligible for it. Justice of the peace, in order to get it, would have to complete the CIT course and the de-escalation course, and then the mental health officer course. So it would add that as a baseline. That course was published April 11th, so it is up and ready for delivery. The other course that many people are waiting for is entitled Cardiac Emergency Communications. It's responsive to House Bill 786, which requires telecommunicators to, basically people refer to it as telecommunicator CPR. In consultation with the author's office and others, we see that as a two-prong compliance. A telecommunicator every 2 years will need to take CPR, a demonstrative, CPR class, not an abbreviated online thing. So that, and we believe that can be arrived at locally anywhere in the state. The hospital districts, volunteer fire departments, CPR is pretty prevalent. We would recognize both American Heart, American Red Cross, any of the nationally recognized CPR certifications. So that's component number one. The second is completion of course 786, which is Cardiac Emergency Communications. That course is published. It is out there for download for the materials for training providers to provide it. It will be a general reporting number as opposed to a number that's restricted to training, contract training providers or academies. So an agency can do that course and report it on an agency roster if the agency has the resources. It's not dependent on going to a regional academy or a regional training provider, trying to make it simpler to access. Education Services staff is working right now on programming this course to be delivered tuition-free on my TCOLE. So ultimately, we will have an option that deals with the notion of the unfunded mandate. We will provide this to the state across the My TCOLE platform. Hope to launch the online version on our system in July is our current target date. People can certainly start training it sooner. We're still actively engaged in the salary survey that's due before the next session. That is going well. We're getting the data and starting to try and crunch those numbers and certainly the commission would get the report from that. Credentialing and field services, as Executive Director pointed out earlier, we've got 2 new employees that are in training, so we're getting back up on the queue. I'm happy to say we now have 4 people back in the phone queue answering the phone calls, so I'm looking forward to being more efficient there. Our year-to-date out-of-state licenses, been an ask in the past. We've approved 284, rejected 40, returned as incomplete 156. A significant number of the incomplete will ultimately complete and military license requests, people coming from a military background where they get the credit for it, we're looking at 30. Credentialing phone calls I know Commissioner Hester always asks about our abandonment rate, which is a key measure on running a phone queue. We're still at about a 15% call abandonment rate, but as we get the 2 new members in the queue, I expect that to get down to certainly single digits, close to 0 as we possibly can. Field services, Doug Stout, our Houston, Greater Houston, Southeast Texas region person, retired in February. We wished him well, and we are currently recruiting for that position. We have interviewed and offered for that position, but have not hired yet. So we will work on that. Right now, Captain Gutierrez and his staff are covering the region, so those in that region who would normally call Doug are welcome to call Richard Gutierrez or myself, and we'll get the help out through field services. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
I have a couple. Back to the BPOC and the update to the 720, and I just want to clarify for those here in attendance and also online, because I've had a few questions. Even if we haven't implemented the new 720, how is the state testing as far as the questions updated, that type?
Okay. The way we're working on the test is the test will not we have not added the new 720 material to the test. There is not enough content change to where the current BPOC test would punish somebody from one curriculum or another. So in other words, if somebody's on the 696 curriculum and they hit the test, there is no new material to the 720 on the exam. We will be adding later, once the go-live date for the content, we know that there's a period after which we've still got people that will be testing on the 696. We're going to let that period lapse rather than build a whole new basic peace officer licensing exam. So if you're on a 696 curriculum, you're going to hit the test. It's not going to punish you for not being on the 720. If you're on the 720, there's nothing artifactual or residual left in the test that's going to punish you for being on the 720. So the test should be both reliable and valid across both. Eventually, you know, we still have the old BPOC test out there for the 643, because we do have people that are still endorsed to take that exam. That should end this month.
Okay,
So if you're a test provider, exam site, within the next month or so, you should only have one single basic peace officer licensing exam option.
okay.
Regardless of 696 or 720, the test will be reliable for both.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. And then on the CPR for telecommunicators, I noticed on, in the curriculum that you indicate subject matter expert has to be someone certified as a trainer for CPR. Is that for both the CPR section? I mean, where they go take CPR, I understand that, but the classroom portion, does that instructor have to always also be a CPR? I mean, the way it's written, it says that. And so I just want to clarify that.
Commissioner, if you'll let me look at the language, I'll get you an answer. I don't have a clean answer for you.
Okay, yeah, it just, reading that, and I've had some questions. It says, does my instructor that's teaching the classroom portion have to be a CPR trainer? And so we may just have to clarify that in that curriculum, so they're not thinking they have to.
I'll make sure we clarify that. I'll get with Rachel.
And then the one last thing, as you mentioned, you're making it a general reporting number to do that. So if I say go to Taylor County Sheriff's Office to take that, I'm not employed by them, but they're offering that class. Does it still fall into where now I have to go back to my other agency and get them to report it? Since it is a general reporting number, they have to do all that?
Yes, remember when an agency reports on an agency roster, they can only report for their employees, their licensees, somebody on their roster. So if I went to a neighbor and they were not a training provider, they can't report for me. So I would have to take that back to my agency where I'm appointed and have that agency report it for me.
I just wanted to clarify that, because I know some get a little confused and they go, well, I went to this agency and they did not report it if they're not a training provider. So just want to clarify that for everybody out here and online. That's all I have.
Thanks for the call stuff, because the abandonment rate is important. I think it's important when we go from 50% of the calls, almost 50, getting abandoned down to 20 is a great stride in the matter. So good job and keep working on that. Do you, on that same one, do you have an idea, or maybe explain the process? So if everybody's on a call, is there a hold queue, or does it automatically go to voicemail? So if all your staff are on the phone.
If basically we have, right now, we have 4 people in the queue, plus Lisa is the rollover. So their supervisor rolls over, or it rolls over to the supervisor. Should all 5 of them be tied up or not answering, then it rolls to a voicemail, to a credentialing voicemail. So that's the norm. Call is considered abandoned. Now, as you can imagine, we've got 2 new employees who get, novel to them questions. They put people on hold and have to either research or ask for an answer to serve the client.
Correct.
If some people, if that takes more than 30 seconds, they drop off hold. That's considered an abandonment. Failure to answer, or somebody doesn't leave a voicemail, that's basically classified as an abandoned call. So a lot of things can lead to that number, but the system set up is it goes into the queue. The 4 members that are unique to the queue should answer it. A lot of times they'll have one person on hold, answer one, can you please hold, go back and service the first client. They're trying to juggle them. If that doesn't work, it rolls over to their supervisor. If she's unavailable, then it would go to voicemail.
What's the time, and I think there's 2 things for that. I think for everyone outside, to understand that there's only 5 people answering the phone, right? So that's an important number, right? So that's kind of one thing I'm getting to ask the question. You know, there's still a customer service component that we work to try to fill with that. How long does it take, if I leave a voicemail, how long does it take, are we tracking how long it takes to return that call?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I could probably get it, Commissioner.
Okay. And the same thing if I send an email, right? So if I'm like, hey, the phone's busy, I'm going to send an email to credentialing. I know you're tracking the number of emails because you have the number of emails on support emails and the TSS, the secure share emails. What date are you working to on those emails, right? So if I send an email, most people expect that if I send an email, I should get something back within a day or so, but I think we need to set expectations. Is it taking us 3 days, 7 days, 5 days to return an email? Because if the queue is really high, you're working from the oldest one back, so how far does that go?
Credentialing help is, we're actually down to within 24 hours.
24 hours? Perfect.
Was the last numbers I got from Lisa. So we're trying to clear now. Now, there are several people that work that credentialinghelp.com, credentialing help email to include field service. Richard Gutierrez gets in there, Richard, Lisa, and then the members of credentialing all work that. And some of the nice thing about the emails is it's easier to refer if it requires a specialist answer. So if you call credentialing help, but it's really a field service question that a field service agent needs to get, it's easier if you email that in, because as Lisa generally is the prime on the queue, she'll send that to the field service agent that's best placed to answer it. Or if it's an academy question, which also comes through that, she'll farm it out to the column ACEs, the academy and contract evaluators that work for Mike. So that email queue, if you can live with a little bit longer period of time, is generally going to get you the best, most accurate answer. But we've got it down to about 24 hours.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I left something off if I could take some time. So this all happened while we were down here or up here in Dallas. The Law Enforcement Peer Network app is final. We were working with Caruth. They notified me Tuesday when we got here that the app is live. They've already given out the QR codes and some of the links for folks to download it for kind of a soft launch. We have now the access code that you will need to create the account is now in the My TCOLE account. And it will only show for individual licensees, because at this time, the peer network is for law enforcement only. So in the My TCOLE account, for individuals that have or have had a peace officer license, a red box with the Law Enforcement Peer Network logo and the access code will appear. We're working with them to get a better image for us to be able to put in the website, so they can also download the app from within the website. But people do have it. It is out there, and we will start collecting data, and you'll see that on our future reports on how that is working.
Actually have that as an agenda item that is going to be deferred to the June meeting. So for those of you in the audience today and those of you joining us online, the Caruth Institute has very graciously accepted an invitation to come and do a presentation. They were supposed to be here today, but had some scheduling conflicts with some other presentations that they had obligated to do. So they will be with us in June, and I would encourage everyone to tune in and learn more about this incredible resource for our officers. And we have an obligation to know about it. We have an obligation to understand it and make sure that the information is communicated. So we're working closely with Caruth on a marketing plan so that we can get that information out to as many people as possible. So more to come in the coming weeks and months as we move forward in partnership with them.
That was all I had.
Any other questions for Directors Grissom or Antu? I don't see any. We are going to take a 10-minute break, and that would put us back here at 10:42.